Well, welcome to the Uncut and Unfiltered Cosmetology Insights with Nathan Shaw show, where we help aspiring and current beauty professionals master the business and craft of cosmetology so that they can build successful, long lasting careers. Your guide is Nathan Shaw, a dedicated educator and a working man's hairdresser who successfully built his schools from his earnings from behind the chair. He generously shares his deep industry experience to challenge misconceptions and to teach you the crucial skills needed to manage your career. I'm your host, Andy Schraub, and today we're going to learn how to network effectively inside this industry and how to start networking earlier in your career and the importance of digital networking because of our modern society where so many things are digital. So, Nathan, thank you for joining us today. I want to start by asking you, when people think of networking, um, I'm imagining they're thinking of like having to go to some event or kind of schmooze. Like, what was your perception, or did you even think about networking when you started in the industry?
So yeah, my perception was something similar, right? That you had to go to a networking event or something like that. And I didn't do a great job early on in my career networking, and I really kind of regretted that I didn't start it sooner to network. That is, but networking doesn't have to be some event where you're schmoozing with people. It's just more really getting to know the people in your industry, communicating with them, just striking up general relationships and friendships with people.
Yeah. I think people fear when they're earlier in their career, and maybe I'd say that's the first 5 years, that they feel like, what? Well, I don't have anything to add to someone in a networking situation. So maybe speak to that fear. Does it matter if you're new?
I don't think so. I think that's a natural fear, though. To go to someone that's more experienced than you and be like, what can I offer them? But at the end of the day, most people in this industry, it's a community, and they're willing to help. And then on top of it, they've been there before, and sometimes that ability to be a mentor is rewarding for you as well in this industry, to be able to help people kind of overcome the obstacles or even avoid the obstacles altogether that you went through yourself. And it also doesn't mean you can't offer them something. Just being there as someone that wants to learn, I think enhances the mentor's abilities too, because when they're teaching you or mentoring you, they actually, it's one of those things, as you teach something, you become even more of an expert in it.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that younger people in the industry can offer is, as you said, they can offer themselves and say, "Hey, I want to have a greater impact as an industry." And as long as that person isn't, hyper competitive and worried about them taking your business or something, then generally they're going to say yes to that. So let's get really practical and start to talk about, when we think about networking, what should be your goal? Let's just say in your first 2 to 3 years of your networking. What would be a reasonable expectation when it comes to networking?
I think in the first couple of years like that, a reasonable expectation is really just expanding your community, who you know in the industry, getting to know them, and try to develop. They don't have to be deep relationships where you're hanging out all the time, but just developing relationships within your industry and within your community of hairdressers or, you know, other beauty professionals, where you can bounce ideas off each other and just kind of communicate, know that you're there to help them if they need it. And also, you want to go to them to be able to like bounce ideas off as well. And when there's more of that open communication and kind of open dialogue, that this isn't just a competition where, let's build something and all be successful, then it really kind of expands your opportunities later on down the road.
I'm thinking about who people might target to network, and I'm thinking there's maybe people that have lots and lots and lots and lots of maybe followers, connections, and sort of social cred. Those people will probably be pretty hard to network with. But so where do people start? Like, what's the beginning group of people that, not the person that's got 5 million followers on Instagram or something. Not that you couldn't reach out to them, but where do you begin your search to network with people that are like-minded and can help each other?
If it's online and in that social media type of atmosphere, it is a little more difficult to get responses from someone that's has the 5 million followers, etc. So sometimes it's just, local people in your own community that are using social media, just networking with them, starting off talking to them about what's working, what's worked for you. If you're willing to share, your own successes as well as failures and information, people are a lot more willing to share back. And it doesn't have to be the top dogs in social media. It can be just people that, it's like, hey, this is a fellow hairdresser I know in my town that doesn't have 5 million followers, but also,
Mhm.
I'd love to collaborate with.
I have some ideas, but I want to hear yours first about when you approach someone that you don't have a connection with, and let's just assume they're someone local, but you happen to maybe see them post something on social, and maybe it was another salon or but you're like, I really like their personality. I like their abilities. Um, when you approach them, what would be your advice to sort of what do you lead with?
So for me, I think it's always best if you can genuinely compliment them. Like you said, if it's someone that you're impressed with and you like what they're doing, then just give them the genuine compliment. You don't have to be cheesy or uh, inauthentic. Just make sure that you're giving them a genuine compliment. Like, hey, I see what you're doing. I'm impressed with it. I'd love to know more about it. And I think when people hear that, it brings down those barriers for them.
Yeah, something really specific that I want to encourage anyone who's listening or watching to do when you do reach out, taking Nathan's advice, when you submit that compliment. So if I say, "Hey Nathan, you're a great guy," you might go, "Hey, thank you," right? Or I might
Yeah.
go, "Hey, you're really good at what you do." You might, again, thank you, right? But if I said, "Hey Nathan, one of the things I really appreciate is that you are very generous with very specific things that people can do when they're choosing what school to go to." And I know since you own schools, people may not choose your school, they might choose another, but you just seem to have a really good abundance mindset. And I just appreciate you being generous with your advice. That's very, very different than you're a nice guy, right? Or I like your stuff. You know what I mean? And so I want to encourage you, if you're listening or watching, when you reach out, please take Nathan's advice, which is first and foremost, be authentic. If you don't like what they do and you don't like their personality, then just, don't connect. But if you do, you can be as specific as you can. I just hope there's someone I follow on social media and actually reach out to him just in the comment section. And I just said, thank you for always being joyful in your videos. I'm sure you're not always joyful in your life, but your videos is bringing me a lot of joy. So thank you for that. And they responded very quickly and personally and said, thank you, I appreciate that. And yeah, I really work on my, like it was specific, right? And so if you can find something specific, hey, I see your booth in the background and I really love how you have that set up and how you have this here and that there. Where did you get that stand or whatever? Like people are going to go, oh, this person's paying attention. This person is really authentic in their praise or their interest. And so I would encourage you to take Nathan's advice, be authentic, be brave, reach out, but also be as specific as you can. Don't be like, hey, I saw you get off at work at 5:15. Like, don't freak them out. But, you
Yeah.
know, but be as specific as you can in what really you appreciate about them. And so let me ask this next part, which is, um, what's a healthy expectation if I reached out to you, Nathan, and I'm brand new in the industry, and I say, Nathan, you own these schools, and you were really, you were very successful in your career. I don't have a lot to add to you because I'm really new, but I just want to say, thank you for this, this, and this. Is the next step to just say not ask anything of them? Is the next step to ask, how you can support them? What's the next healthy step in the relationship beyond, or is it, can we get coffee? What are some things, some options people have?
Yeah. To that point, I do think it's always best if you can offer them something first because, especially if it's someone that is doing well in their community, community of beauticians or hairdressers, and they might have a lot of demands on their time. So if you start asking right away, like, "Hey, I'd love to pick your brain or meet for coffee," it very much becomes kind of one sided, like they're just trying to get something from you.
Yeah.
So if you can go to them like, "Hey, how could I help you?" In maybe they teach classes or maybe they do events. You're like, "I'd love to assist you at your next event and just help you in any way that I can. When
Yeah.
you're willing to give first, people always will tend to reciprocate at that point.
Let's diverge for a little bit and follow that path that you just said. If someone is a rep for a company, or if someone has an event that they're, hosting, I think that is like a super ninja move to say, "Hey, I see you have this event coming up. I'm going to attend either way, but I would love to help you on a really practical level. Is there anything that you need with setup, with registration, with checking people in? I mean, is there anything I can do? Getting testimonials, and again, maybe those things aren't in your skill sets, but the answer is probably going to be yes. And talk about getting some time. I mean, I'm always fascinated because there's this ministry that supports poor children all over the world, and one of the ways that they get people to sign up to support these kids is they go to concerts, and you can volunteer for one of these booths to help with this nonprofit, and you get to go to the concert for free.
Yeah,
And so it's one of those things where it's like, hey, I can help, and I can also do this thing. So I love that advice, Nathan. Be as practical and as helpful as you can. One other one I think is unique, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this one, is that spending a little bit of money on someone's thing, like their book, their program, their whatever, it goes a long way. Don't ask for a discount. Just say, hey, I bought this. I'm excited. Or, hey, I bought that and I was going through it in lesson 3 or chapter 4 or whatever. Again, the more specific you can be, the better, the more memorable.
absolutely.
Tell me the difference, Nathan, between someone who reaches out to you and says, hey, I really appreciate, things, this, and someone who reaches out and says that, and then they say, hey, and I did what you told, I did what you said to do on the podcast, and this happened. What's the difference in networking with someone who's actually taking action versus someone who just says, hey, can I get some of your time?
I think it's a huge differentiator, right? And the reason being is, as someone who does teach classes and educates, a lot of students, and um, it's always so much more rewarding when you're feeling like you're trying to impart knowledge onto them that has helped you in your career, that will help them, when people actually take action. A lot of people want to ask for advice, but they're never going to take it, or they're not going to do the work necessary that you advise them to do. And
Yeah.
so it kind of feels like, okay, well, that was a waste of both our times. And
Mhm.
so when they're actually doing it and you're like, I know this works because I've done it. I've walked the walk. I've done the reps, right? Like, and then someone takes that advice and follows through, then you're way more willing to want to help them more.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Let's take a different angle. There are networking groups that are actually organized and paid and things like that. Have you ever had any success, or would you ever encourage anyone to attend or buy into one of those? And if yes, why? And if no, why?
So, it would be hard for me to recommend because I've never done that. I've been to a couple little things like that. And to me, they always came off, and this is me personally, so it's not going to be the same for everybody. They came off a little salesy. Everybody was trying to like network and get something again, right? It's like, I have something I need. And it just seemed, not desperate's not the right word, but it just seemed like, okay, this is obvious. Everybody's just trying to
Yeah.
drum up business, when at the end of the day, I'd rather have, more authentic relationships.
Yeah, it's funny. Have you ever heard that story about? There's a lot of different versions of it, but basically, there's like a bunch of people sitting around a campfire, and the campfire has wood in it, but everyone else has a piece of wood. And one person looks across the campfire and says, "I'm not going to put my piece of wood in because I don't want to help that person over there. I want them to help me." But then the next person says, "I'm not going to put my piece of wood in because I don't want to help that person. I want them to help me." And then they all freeze to death because no one put their wood in the fire, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like that's the authenticity that's lacking with those events. A lot of times, you use the word salesy. I would just say selfish.
Maybe that's a
It's
greater,
this environment of
yeah,
just give me something, give me something, give me something, versus an environment of how can I help you? How can I help you? How can I help you?
yeah,
And I think the other thing that's difficult is with those groups, and I have been to some of those, is that I don't know if those people are very good at their job or not.
yeah,
So if they're
yeah.
saying, hey, I want to be your painter. I'm like, are you good? or I want you to tell your clients as they're sitting in your chair, why they should switch their insurance to me. And I'm like, okay, but like, are your rates good? So there's challenges in those networking groups because the more official ones, they're pretty stringent. They're pretty strict, I should say, is probably the better word, about number of leads you have to give out and give and ask for, and it can be a kind of a fake environment. Let me ask you this. I think maybe this is the elephant in the room. Maybe we should talk about this earlier, but should you be worried about talking to someone and collaborating with someone in your same town because
No.
they're going to take clients and you're going to take their clients, or they're a rival or something? I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny, and you probably get this in a lot of industries. Um, I found this in the beauty industry in particular. There can be a lot of people that have a lot of ego, that's kind of an artistic career. And sometimes that can lead to ego and stuff for some people, but it's not everybody, right? And to me, it's really one of those deals that, like, if they have a bunch of ego around it and they don't want to collaborate, it's probably not someone you want to collaborate with,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I think you should absolutely collaborate with people in your town. What tends to happen, I think, is people get a scarcity mindset that there's not enough to go around. When the truth is, if you collaborate with people, you actually create like more of an abundance mindset, right? And people are like, hey, these guys aren't afraid to work together or to refer to one another. I mean, when I was in the salon a lot and we were, too booked or too busy, we would gladly refer, guests that were new guests trying to get an appointment to another salon that was a couple blocks from us because we knew they did great work. And you know what? It was never even verbally communicated, but they would do the same thing. Sometimes they'd have someone that tried to get an appointment right then and, would walk in and they're like, we can't get you in, but, check out the electric chair, and they'd send them over our way. And I think that type of collaboration just leads to everybody winning rather than everybody thinking there's not enough.
Yeah. First, I would say, if you feel like, gosh, I don't know if people would want to collaborate with me or network with me because, I'm just started, or maybe, I'm older. And so I don't know if someone younger would want to, like, there's all these fears.
Yeah.
And I would just say that most of them are, number one, they're very common. All right. And two is, like, they're all kind of fake. So the idea that, like, you're going to run out of people, you really think you're going to run out of people in your town?
Yeah.
If like, no, there's plenty of people. There's plenty of people. People switch churches, they switch houses, they switch jobs, they switch cars, and they're going to switch, hairdressers, that's just going to happen. I think you're focusing on the wrong thing if you're worried about that. And if you're worried that, they're not going to want to collaborate with you, then, that's going to happen. But I think what's interesting is there's so many people, think about that campfire again. There's all these people out there and they feel cold and isolated, right? And it's like, if they would just step in and put their piece into the collective, then everyone's going to get better, right? And so I hope as people hear this, that they'll take some practical steps. So let's just say that right now, the only networking anyone does is really just sort of in their own salon. They don't really know other people at other salons. Maybe they follow people online. Let's end with some really practical, ways to just maybe even find other people in your community, and again, then apply the things we talked about before. But how would you encourage people to find people, let's just say, in their local community, that are doing good work?
So you're talking outside of their salon, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think ultimately, and this is one of those places, social media is great for that. If you follow other local hairdressers, then you get the recommended friends, right? It's like, oh, these other people in the community. And sometimes just following them and giving them support. And then back to our earlier conversation where we're like, hey, compliment them, tell them what you like about what they're doing. Not just that you like what they're doing, but like what you like about what they're doing, and be specific, as you said. And then, talk about like, hey, if there's education classes we all attend, advanced education. I shouldn't say we all attend, but you can share that information. I saw this class coming up. I might take it if you've done anything like that. Just start that conversation and offer them things that you know that are happening that could benefit them. And again, once you do that, it's less about being selfish, and you start giving, and that always ends up, I feel, coming back to you. It's
Absolutely.
I've heard that saying, like, if you want, if you help people get what they want in life, you're more likely. That's how you get what you want in life, is just by helping as many people as you can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I hope that those who've been listening and watching take away that this is not impossible. It is, it reminds me of sort of that, the special lane on the highway that, you're only supposed to take if you have two people, or the HOV, high occupancy
Yeah.
vehicle. It can be sort of this cheat code for the industry. That's what we want this show to be. We want to help you get ahead and be more successful faster and with less pain and heartache. But I want to encourage you who are listening and watching, like, think about if you never ever learned from anyone else in the industry. You just had yourself. Like, is that going to help? Or, how likely are you to be successful if you never ever worked with anyone else? And you think, well, that's ridiculous. Why would I ever do that? And the answer is, yeah, you're right. Why would you do that? So the reverse is also true. The more people you connect with, the more you learn, the more you humble yourself and go to classes and um, submit yourself to feedback. The more you connect with other people, I really do believe the more success you'll have. Nathan, I appreciate guiding those who are checking out the show through that. And if you're listening, we hope you'll take time to just do some searches, other salons and their Facebook pages or their Twitter or whatever, their Instagram. It's out there, and reach out and follow the examples and the specifics we gave, and I'm confident that it will help you build a better network. So, Nathan, thank you as always for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Andy.